Mr Speaker.
Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr Speaker, there's no decision more serious for a government to make than to commit its personnel to a war conflict zone where some of them may not return. Yet this decision is being made in the House today without a vote. Without a vote because there is no majority in this House to support the deployment of troops to Iraq. In fact, if there was a conscience vote on the national side, there would be a minority in this House in favour of deployment, because that decision in the National Caucus was not a unanimous one. Mr Speaker, just 8 short months ago, John Key issued this statement. It's headed, "No New Zealand forces to Iraq." No New Zealand forces to Iraq. He said there would be no boots on the ground, not even in an advisory capacity. And he said New Zealand doesn't take these actions without a United Nations sanction. Every one of those comments made before the election represents a broken promise. And the reason that we're going to Iraq is because after the election, when a little bit of pressure was put on by the Australians, the British and the Americans, John Key courageously said, "I would deploy." But don't tell New Zealanders I need a length of time to soften them up. I need distance from this promise here before the election that we would not be doing it. Mr Speaker, there is no doubt that ISIS is a brutal and a barbaric organisation. But in that sense, it's not much different from President al-Assad's regime in Syria, who has slaughtered 100,000 of its people, not much different from the Shia and the Sunni militias who have committed crimes against humanity and committed war crimes. Mr Speaker, the one difference is this. This ISIS sets out deliberately to publicise its actions, to shock and to lure the United States and its friends deeper into committing military forces. And the government needs to think about why they might be doing that and what the consequences might be. You see, this government hasn't thought through the consequences of its actions. It didn't when John Key and Bill English supported committing New Zealand troops to Iraq in 2003. They said we should be there, and any analysis of why ISIS has thrived in Iraq relates to the National Party's support for an invasion that failed in its objectives and actually made the situation much worse than it was. Mr Speaker, we're doing the wrong thing today for the wrong reason. The wrong reason because we're doing it in one of Mr Key's more honest moments because we're part of the club. Not like he told the press gallery on yesterday's press conference that this was the club of 62. Read the Key statement. It nominated members of the club. It said who they were, the Western nations. And we're doing it, sir. We're doing the wrong thing because when you put people's lives at risk, there must be achievable objectives. There must be achievable objectives, otherwise the sacrifice that you might indulge in is going to be futile. And we know this. We know that of the 143 people that we are putting in harm's way, just 16 will be there to train. Just 16 of 143. And we know that in the last 10 years, the Americans have put thousands and thousands of trainers into the Iraqi army. They've spent $25 billion in arming and equipping that army with no effect. We know it won't succeed because they're deeply corrupt, they are highly sectarian, they are incompetent, and they have no morale. And there is no way that New Zealand can do for the Iraqi army what it can't and won't do for itself. Mr Speaker, we don't support sending the troops, but our thoughts and prayers will be with them for a safe return home.
Mr. Speaker.
Right Honourable